And here we go. Good afternoon. How you doing? It's a beautiful day. This is the day the Lord has made. We will be glad and rejoice in it. How's it going, folks? Shoot me a text and tell me how things are going. 814 651 8865. 814 651 8865. And you can tell me how everything's going for you. This is our video of the day. We're going to do our 2 o'clock hour on the radio, and we're going to do a little talking, run our video, hopefully just about an hour. Planning on just doing an hour. It's hard to keep this stuff to an hour. I created a playlist and put it on our on our website. So if you go to godslovelive.com, right at the very beginning of the very first page, the startup there, you will see Partnering with Messiah, and the video playlist shows up, I believe. It should. If I did what I was supposed to do. If I did it right. I'm bringing it up right now over here. I thought, let's go check this out real quick, because we want to make sure that it's working. Maybe. If the computer would cooperate. And you can check out our audio program there as well, because when you bring it up, it starts to play. And you'll be able to hear it. So if you want to tune in to our audio show at any point now or tomorrow morning, we'll be on 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. If you want to listen to Pastor Ryan, he'll be on 9 a.m. to noon daily. And yeah, so if you bring it up right now, you see the very top. It's the first video. And pause that. Okay, and then the other videos, kind of as it goes down, and as we add videos to the playlist, it'll add the videos. I gotta make that box a lot smaller. That very top is huge. Oh my goodness, that's huge. I might have to change the size of that a little bit, just to try to make it so it's not quite so prevalent. Although the videos are a great place to start our planning or whatever. How's it going? As my phone goes crazy. Nope. Okay. How's it going? I went through a bunch of stuff this morning as I was getting ready. I was kind of like, okay. So I had an appointment scheduled for 9 o'clock this morning. I found it amusing because the doctor had to reschedule. And they called me. It's about an hour and 15-minute drive from here to where I had the doctor's appointment. And they called me at and the appointment was at 9. I was getting ready to leave. I poured my coffee. I'm ready to go. About to walk out the door, and the phone goes off, and I was like, oh, let's see who that is. And I answer the phone, and it's them, and they're like, hey, we got to cancel. And I found that amusing, mostly because anytime that we have a situation where we have to cancel and it's only an hour or so ahead of time, what do? Well, they're going to charge you. Well, you got to cancel you got to cancel 24 hours earlier. And I was telling my wife, I was like, the annoying part isn't that they had to cancel. The annoying part is that they're like, but next time you have to cancel, we're going to throw a fit. No, should I send you an invoice? Should I charge you the $50 like you do, like some doctors do us? Oh, you got here late? Nope, we've canceled your appointment. It's funny too, because like I said earlier, they on the air they cancel the appointment. Sometimes if you're 15, 20 minutes late, what do? They'll cancel on you. They'll be like, oh no, we canceled your appointment because you were late. But then if you're on time or early, what do? You sit there for quite a while waiting to get in. And it's like, well, if it takes more than 20 minutes to get me into your office, does that mean I can charge you the way you would charge me? I know. Chuckles. All right, we're going to. What are we going to talk about today? I think we've done quite a bit here to cover over the last couple of days, week. We've been talking about partnering with Messiah. Yesterday we were talking about multiplying disciples. Why is that important? You know, what's I guess what I'm looking at, and we talked about it yesterday a bit, is we are trying to spread the gospel good news. And of course, Matthew 28, 18 through 20. The Great Commission. Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in my name, teach them to obey all that I have taught you, and I am with you until the very end of the age. If that's the case, oh, hello. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing this right. Latonia?
Oh, hello.
I hope I pronounced your name right. Latonia, that's what it looks like. Shared my video and she's watching now. Shoot me a message, dear. So we start talking about this making disciples, multiplying disciples, making copies of Christ based on him by going out and sharing his good news, the Messiah's gospel good news, the mission of Messiah. And if we're going to take that seriously, which I think we should, there's a couple of things we ought to consider. Number one, again, we've talked about this before, but we're going to talk a little bit about it today, kind of a synopsis as we're getting closer and closer to Passion Week. I want to look at what it means truly to serve. Because we talk about, I'm going to throw my stupid cell phone over here because it makes the audio go clickety, clickety, clickety. We have to, we have to look at what are we given, what is our mission, what is our mission, and looking at our mission, what does that mean for these people, and why? Okay, making disciples throughout the world. Okay, first of all, it's commanded by Jesus. He tells them at the end of Matthew, he tells them, go make disciples of all the world. Okay. And that in and of itself is good enough. That is good enough. But we were talking yesterday when we were talking about multiplying, when we first started talking about multiplying, we were talking about this concept that what we know to be true, okay, and some people will say what we believe, and what we believe is accurate, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use what we know to be true, because between you and I, we know this to be true. Those who do not love him and keep his commands, those who are not members of the kingdom and haven't accepted the gift of salvation, what happens to them? Seriously, what happens? Well, they are condemned, right? They are judged. And then there's the punishment. And we're all going to be judged. All will be judged. That is true. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was like, dude, you got to watch saying that. I don't know. because I'm not saying it. This isn't me. Okay? 2 Corinthians 5:10. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to what he hath done, whether good or bad. And look at the NIV in that. Let's see. NIV. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each of us may receive what is due us for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. Ephesians 5. I'm sure we can find places in Revelations in the Old Testament where we can talk about the fact that all will be judged. And I said this a couple of weeks ago in a video, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong, and if you can show me biblically that I'm wrong, I would very much like for you to let me know. Call, text, whatever, and say, hey, Chuckles, go to this verse. This verse says that what you're saying about being judged is wrong. I don't have the monopoly on being right. I would love to know that I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, it's awesome, because if I'm wrong and I don't need salvation, then okay, cool. I can go do what I want to do the rest of my life, right? Now, again, from Isaiah 53. Was it Isaiah 53? I think, yeah, Isaiah 53:5. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. The punishment that brought us peace. The punishment due us for the things we've done in the body, good or bad, the bad ones. The punishment due us was on him. He took it upon himself. He took it upon himself. He came in, became flesh, became human. He that being God in trying to remember where that is. Jesus being God. Jesus being God did not consider himself equal with God. Philippians 2:6-11, who being in very nature God did not consider equality with God something to be used to his advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant. He emptied himself out, some of the translations do say. He emptied himself out of his divine power, authority. He gave it up voluntarily. Now, was he happy to do it? No. Well, at the very least, in the garden, he definitely wasn't, all smiles going to the cross. In the garden, how did it go? My heart is filled with sorrow to the point of death. I mean, to the point of death. He was going to die. He understood more than anyone there, of course, what that meant. Matthew 26:38. Matthew 26:38. Then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry here, watch me. And he went to pray. Right? Matthew 26:38. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow. So he definitely didn't skip hopping. He wasn't skipping down the road to his death. He wasn't looking forward to it. He asked, Father, if all things with you are possible, and if you can take this from my hand, do. He asked that. He said that to the Father. But not my will, Lord, yours be done. That's amazing. It's a little hard to wrap your head around this idea that he knew, and I don't know how much detail he knew about what was going to happen to him over the next couple of days. My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. And then he lived it. He didn't just say these things. He didn't just go, okay, here. See, this is the part that gets lost in the I don't know, pomp and circumstance of Easter when we're considering Resurrection Sunday. This was the culmination of 33 years of living it. He emptied himself out, as that verse from Philippians said a minute ago. He emptied himself out, becoming like a servant, the very nature of a servant, made in human likeness. Being found in appearance as a man, humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. So when we discuss what does God want from me, we have the answer. His only begotten Son, his perfect God the Son, his being in very nature God, but not considering equality with God the Father something to be used to his own advantage. Jesus, prior to becoming Jesus, God the Son emptied himself out of his divine privilege, power, everything. And yes, as he's hanging on the cross, he could have called out to his Father, to the angels, and they would have come, and they would have saved him. They would have drug him off of there. But he wanted to follow the Lord's will. How many of us would have made it past, I don't know, man, the trial? I don't know. I could just see like the crown of thorns. That would touch my head. I'd be like, Father, no, take me out of here. Like, beam me up, Daddy. Like, I'm, by human standards, I'm not what you would call a weak man, but I have looked, and if you've never looked, if you've never actually sat and read the truth of what physically this would have been, what this would have done to the human body, not to mention the mind and the spirit, what this would have done. Just go do that. If the powers, there's another one. If the powers of this world knew, they wouldn't have crucified him. there's this, and it's in First Corinthians. Um, and we'll look at that in just a second. I do need to get to this. Oh, I got a couple of minutes. I do need to get to this first audio break for our radio program. But if you look at this passage in First Corinthians, right? First Corinthians 2:8. And we're going to look at this real quick before we get on here. And I know Jared had asked me the other day. He's like, "Dude, why do you always start the video 20 minutes before the show, and then you talk for a while?" Listen. This is, I can tell you what this is. This is me finding a way to kind of work through at least a little bit, because I don't spend a great deal of time preparing for this video. I sit down and I spend a great deal of time reading in the Bible and looking at things and trying to kind of come up with an idea what I'm going to do, but I don't sit down and I don't outline this program. Not in the way most people who do a podcast or a blog or a radio show or anything like that would consider it really planning. I kind of sit down and see if I have. I don't, because I ripped it off. I had the first page of that notebook had some notes on it, but it's over sitting at the house at the kitchen. I left it sitting at the table in the kitchen when I left. But I kind of sit down and scribble things down in the morning. Like, all right, let me see. While I'm doing our 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. show on the radio, I'm kind of considering. Okay, what do I? And sometimes I'll talk about things on the 6 a.m. show on the radio, and I'll be like, yeah, I think we're going to go here with this, or we're going to go there with that, or whatever. And then the next thing you know, I go completely a different direction on the video and in the afternoon program. That's not because I'm flighty. It's because sometimes I'll sit down and go, okay, here's what I think I should do today, and then like I'll get done with the morning show at 9 a.m. and then I'll be doing whatever administrative stuff I'm doing from 9 to 11:30 or so before I start doing our noon show. And it's like, oh. And God will just throw something in front of me and be like, nah, here, you're going to do this. And then I'll sit back and go, oh, that makes way more sense. Okay, and we are, today being Thursday. Today is Thursday, right? Yeah, today being Thursday, we are in a position of, we're a week away from Maundy Thursday. We're just a couple of days away from Palm Sunday. I know my wife was about half asleep when she left, so I'm going to text her and tell her, don't forget she has to stop and pick up the CD. So, in a couple of days, Palm Sunday is coming up. And Palm Sunday to me when I was a kid was always kind of like, it was like the beginning. I'm in the wrong window. It was like the beginning of, like, it is kind of the beginning of Passion Week. It is the beginning of Passion Week. I shouldn't say is. Kind of like it is, no. But I always kind of like, I sat back and I thought, man, that's a week, right? So on Palm Sunday, and maybe we'll read this a little bit here. You know what? Yeah, let's do this. I said that like it's some kind of great thing. Yeah, a lot of times when I go back and I read a story, I just, like Palm Sunday, I tend to, as I'm reading it, I'm kind of going, okay, wait a second. This is not what I envisioned. So how about we read it together? I'm going to invite our folks that are listening on the radio to come back and we'll do it in the second break, but it's going to be, and I'll give you the verses here. I think it's Matthew 20-something, 20, 21. Let's see. Oh, yep, here we go. Matthew 21. It's the very beginning of 21, and it goes through, looks like, the first 11 verses. Um, and I think I want to, maybe next week, I want to do specific videos for these different days. So I think I might create a video for Palm Sunday that'll be kind of like what we're doing now, but with just the whole, just like I'll read it and then we'll talk just a little bit, and then, you know, if you walk through here from chapter 21, from the Palm Sunday story through the end of Matthew, you know, there's these chunks. This is all stuff that takes place in that week after he triumphantly enters Jerusalem up to Good Friday and then Resurrection Sunday. And there's a lot in here in the Matthew version anyway, because I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, of course, the Last Supper. We're seeing the plot, but we're also seeing the day and hour unknown. That section's in here. The parable of the 10 virgins. I think there's a lot here. I mean, it's 8:21 through 28, right? Because there's 28 chapters in Matthew, isn't there? Yeah, there is, because that's where the Great Commission is at the end of 28. It's 28 chapters, so 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So basically 8 chapters. I'm thinking maybe we'll read through the 8 chapters over the next 8 days. And if we do that, that would put us on Good Friday, right? Finishing up on Good Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Boom, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that's if you count the Saturday and Sunday. But I think I would. When we read Luke for Christmas, through the month of December, we read Luke. And we read all 24 verses, or all 24 chapters of Luke from December 1st through December 24th. And we read on December 24th on Christmas Eve. You end up. So if we read 21 today, 22 tomorrow, 23. Oh, it matches the day too. Okay. We would end up reading on Maundy Thursday. We would read the final chapter of Matthew, and the final chapter in the story of our Lord's life from coming to Jerusalem as king. That's the title in the New International Version, all the way through. I'll do that in a separate video where I read the entire chapter, and you can check that out. I'll put it up as our we'll call it. I'll put it up on the website as like the Passion Week playlist or something. But right now, I just want to read these first 11 verses, and it's chapter 21, verses 1 through 11, and we'll do it in our second audio break of the hour, which will be coming up in just a few. First, we're going to have to do the first break, if I can get my computer to cooperate. There we go. And we've got Psalm 143 taking us to the first audio break of the hour.
Trusting in you.
It's Psalm 143 here on God'sLoveLive.com with Chuckles in the afternoon. And I know we talked the last hour and the hour before, we talked about how, we were going to talk about partnering with Messiah today and our daily walk with him, and how important it is. And all of that is absolutely important, but I've gotten diverted. We started our video a little bit ago live on Facebook, and if you get a chance, go back and watch the video. We are 30 minutes into the video, but we're just now almost 10 after 2. We're doing this first break. And what I want to do is I want to tell you that you should go check out the video, because what we talk about in the video prior to this, it's all good stuff. I mean, I'm an idiot, but I think it was all, kind of pertinent, and there's a lot of rambling there, but I think it's worth a discussion, and maybe it'll bring up some questions for you, and you can message me, tell me what you think. So I had a breakthrough as we were as we were doing the video, as we were getting ready to do this, I was like, Sunday is Palm Sunday. Sunday is the day that Jesus rides into Jerusalem as king. It's the day they celebrate him as he rolls in, and then just a week, actually less than a week later, just a couple of days later, on Thursday, he's arrested, and then on Friday crucified, and then of course on Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. So he comes in and goes out of Jerusalem in glory. Eventually, because of course the ascension is actually, 40 days? Is that what it said? 30 days or 40 days between, and we're going to go into Acts. We are going to do an Acts, a book study of Acts coming up. But I want to remember how many days it was between. I don't remember if it tells us or not. Jesus appeared to them in a lot of different ways and places, and throughout after being resurrected up until until the ascension. And I was trying to remember off the top of my head, but I'll find out. We'll look. So what we're going to do is we're going to read, and I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to read along with us. So we're going to read Matthew 21, verses 1 through 11, coming up in the next break. So stick around. We would love for you to come along and read Matthew chapter 21 and be a part of this with us. Bring it up on your device or open your Bible, whatever it is, and we will read Matthew 21, verses 1 through 11 in the next break right after Ren Collective. Right now, Stephen Curtis Chapman, More to This Life, coming right up. It never works. Are you ready for winter? We are at R&B Auto. Okay. That was Ren Collective Second Chance here on GodsLoveLive.com with Chuckles in the afternoon. What a beautiful afternoon it is. I hope you're having a great day and enjoying the music. I hope you're staying safe, happy, healthy, and warm out there. It's cold here where I'm at. We have the reading of Matthew 21. We're going to start in verse 1. We're going to read through verse 11. I'm going to do a video later reading through the entirety of the chapter of Matthew 21. I'm going to do that a little bit later today and put it up. And you guys, if you want to join in and chat about the Matthew 21, the chapter, I think we're going to read each chapter, 21 through 28, to the end of Matthew. That would put us on next Thursday, Maundy Thursday, on the day that they arrested our Savior. We would finish reading the book of Matthew and maybe getting an understanding of what all took place between this day where he was celebrated as king, entering into Jerusalem, celebrated as such a great prophet and king, to the day where they were screaming out, "Crucify him." So Matthew 21, verses 1 through 11. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you. At once you will find a donkey tied there with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet from Zechariah. Zechariah, or is it no? Maybe, yeah. "Say to your daughter Zion, see your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road. Others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. Hosanna in the highest heaven." When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." He was celebrated going into Jerusalem. I'm sorry for the brief silence there, but this is the beginning of, if he were selfish like me, the worst week of his life. And it began on the highest note. Now, for Jesus, this wasn't the worst week of his eternity. And I'll tell you why. Although he didn't necessarily do it with a... No, he did do it with a gleeful heart. See, I have to figure out a way that, like, we obviously see when he's praying in the garden that he would love to find a better way, but he knows there's no better way, so he serves the Father's will, and he does so gladly. It does not mean overly celebrating, like, oh yeah, it's time, they're going to kill me. No, it means he serves with that servant's heart that he lived with. And again, this, if you point back, if you let this point back and look, if you read this, if you get somebody who is a non-believer to understand this part of it, it's just the beginning of our understanding. Understanding the resurrection and the need for grace and the offer of salvation that Christ gives us is just the beginning of what we need. Because that's the simple part. And I know, you're like, chuckles. No, it is. It's the simple part. The simple part of God's offer of salvation and reconciliation here is him extending the olive branch of the sacrifice of Christ on the cross for our salvation. Here you go. Covered in his blood, we are now righteous and holy in God's eyes because we are washed clean and flawless with the blood of Christ. That is the beginning, and that is simple. All I have to do is go, yes, Lord, please forgive me and cover me in your blood, and he'll do it. The complicated part is that once I start to understand what that really means for me, this is where I start to get into trouble, especially with religious people. Once I really start to look at it and go, man, he did this for me. He gave me peace, reconciliation, completeness, all of it, just because he loves me. What other reason does he have? What other thing does the God of the universe gain by making me his son? Nothing. I've got nothing to offer but the love that he created in me in the first place. That's why I say, somebody said to me a while back, and I know the guy, and he's a good guy, and he didn't mean it, but when I said it to him, and when I said to him what I said to him after, he was like, oh, I have never thought of that. Yeah, you got a point. As I was talking to a guy, and he was like, yeah, he says, I just want to do what God needs me to do. And I'm like, God doesn't need you to do anything. Any more than I need my wife in my life. And before any of you ladies start throwing anything at me, I don't need my wife in my life. I can survive in my life without my wife. If we weren't together, when we weren't, before we got married, I was surviving. I was getting by. I was fairly happy. I was raising 3 kids, It was okay. But it wasn't the abundance of the full life that God had intended for me to have with my wife until we came together. And before we came together, I would have never seen what it truly meant to have that full abundant life in the covenant that I could have. I wouldn't have understood it. Because when you know, and when you don't, you can't. You can't know until you do. I know that's the complicated part, and that's where I start to lose people. I don't need my wife in my life. I want her in my life. She completes me. She gives me a peace. I know you're like, wait a second, Chuck. We've heard you talk about Sue before. She gives you a peace. I'm talking about real peace. Obviously, she gives me grief every time I sneak into her cookies. Of course, but that's not a very peaceful thing. But she gives me a peace of completeness. She helps me to be closer. She inspires me and lifts me up to be closer to the man God wants me to be, to the man God designed me to be, without even realizing she does it. And I hope that for the most part I do that for her. I pray that for the most part I do that for her. All right, so Jesus comes to Jerusalem as king. He is pronounced. He's celebrated as he goes in. And then this next story, and we're going to talk about it coming up in the just a little bit in the next break, where he goes into the temple and drives out those who were. I'm going to have to jump around a little bit in the Gospels for this because I do want to make sure we understand what we're about to learn for sure about our Savior in this next section, verses 12 through 17. So stick around. You're listening to God's Love Live. I'm Chuckles, and Aaron Cole's up next.
Bringing you God's Love Live.
So there are people. I'll go ahead and start to line this up for you folks. There are people who would claim that the Lord Jesus is a pacifist. I've heard people make that claim. Actually, I've heard a lot of people make that claim. Jesus is a pacifist. No, he's not. Actually, Jesus loves people. He's a peace-loving man. He wants everyone to have that abundant, joyful life, and he wants it to be in a peaceful manner. But this next part where we talk about him going into the temple courts, driving out all of those who were buying and selling there, overturning tables and of the tables of the money changers and benches of the people selling doves. And he looks at them and says, "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." And he just goes off on these guys. Sometimes I read that and I wonder if that had to be in order to create a situation where they're looking literally to crucify him. And we're not going to talk too much about it, but I am going to go to, I think, the Mark version, which is Mark 11. And the only reason is, I believe the Mark version is where it says that he fashioned the whips that he used in this particular situation. And that's kind of a thing that I want to really look at and consider, because I swear they were in here, but I don't see them. Yeah, anyway, that's one of the things that I really want to look at and consider is the difference here between this story and clearing the temple courts the next day when they're leaving. He would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple. And as he taught, he said to them, and then it tells us the chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for an excuse to kill him, for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. So when he throws them out, it does actually look like when he throws them out of the temple, this was when they started to turn, just the next day. He had just rode triumphantly into the city. And then the next day he goes into the temple, and he drives them out. Driving out those who were buying and selling, he overturned the tables of money changers and the benches, and etc., etc., etc. But he also fashioned a whip to drive them out. That's the part I was looking for. It must be Luke. Let's look in Luke. It's towards the end of Luke, like 18 or 19, right? So let's go to 18, 19. Okay, here we go. He comes to Jerusalem as the king. And then is written, when Jesus entered the temple, he began to drive out those who were selling. Said it is written, every day he was teaching at the temple, but chief priests and teachers. Okay, where is it? I swear. Maybe that's one of those things. That'd be kind of messed up. I swear I read it. No, that's the John. Okay, so I went Matthew, Mark, Luke. I didn't look at the John, at John's version of this, and apparently that's the one I should have looked at. Okay, let's see, John. Jesus clears the temple courts. This is in 2nd chapter of John, starting verse 13. And that's the part I want to talk about, so we'll get ready and we'll do this as well. Well, it helps if I start the dong.
Walk with Jesus.
Consumed by fire, walk with Jesus here on God'sLoveLive.com with Chuckles in the afternoon. What a beautiful afternoon it is. I hope you're having a great day. Enjoy the music. Staying safe, happy, healthy, and warm out there. Don't ask me why I do that silly stuff. I guess it's just me. So, I want to talk about clearing the temple courts. So we just read Matthew 21, verses 1 through 11 in the last break, and we talked a little bit about Jesus entering triumphantly. And then the very next section in John, or in Matthew, he talks about Jesus entering the temple courts and driving out the sellers and buyers and change makers and cash handlers and all that, right? So, I wanted to look at the John passage of this, though. And here's why. It's a very purposeful thing. A lot of people have the opinion, they like to push the narrative of hippie Jesus, the pacifist. And he loves everyone. He wants everyone to be redeemed. He wants everyone to be loved, and he has great compassion, obviously, because look what he did for us. But here's something that we have to consider as we are understanding this. So I'm going to read. It's John chapter 2, and it starts in verse 13. And I'm going to read the entirety of the 25 to the end of the verse, end of the chapter 25 to verse 25. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it in the next break. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, others sitting at tables, exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords. Keep that in your head. He made a whip out of cords and drove all of them from the temple courts. Both sheep and cattle, he scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market. His disciples remembered that it is written, Zeal for your house will consume me. The Jews then responded, What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all this? And he answered them, destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. Destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. They replied, it has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to raise it in 3 days? But the temple he had spoken of was his body. And he was raised from the dead. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recalled what he had said, and then they believed the words of the scripture and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now, while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all the people. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person. So, he knew them. He knew what they were looking to do. And they were looking after this. I read in the Mark version of that story, that's when they started looking, I think it was the Mark version, that's when they started looking for a way to kill him. After he drove them out of the temple, and I'm sure some of them were already looking beforehand, but it actually says in Mark, and I think it was Mark maybe 11 here. Yeah, chapter 11, Jesus comes to Jerusalem, and then he goes to, okay, so in verse 18 of Mark 11, the chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this. This is after he said, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers. Quoting, what was he quoting? Jeremiah 7:11. Quoting Jeremiah, he said that, and then the chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. He was teaching something that was just upside down of everything these people knew, and of everything they thought they knew about the coming Messiah. The teachers, the religious teachers, the religious scholars, they sat, and this is why I spend so much time talking about all of this. Not so that you'll be impressed with my idiocy. Sometimes so that you'll be a little bit entertained. I do some things because it's kind of funny and it's fun, and that's okay. We're allowed to have a little entertainment. We're allowed to have joy in our lives. No, mostly I do this because these people decided they knew something. Okay, this is why I keep telling all of you who are listening and watching the videos, listening on the audio and watching the video, that if you can find scripture that says I'm wrong about something, or Pastor Ryan, or Pastor this, or I don't care if it's, what's his name that did the Pat Robertson did for years the TV show. Now I'm going to go blank on the TV show. It's a great TV show. Anyway, or Franklin. Kirk Franklin, I keep thinking of, but that's not right. Is it? No. Oh man. Anyway, you know the big preachers who've done great things, right? Anybody, if you can show us in the gospel, in the books of the Bible, in the New Testament, hey, right here in Corinthians, it says this, especially if it's in the gospel in red letters. Nobody can tell you anything that is contrary to the red letters of the gospel, the message of Christ, the message of Messiah, that's right. They can't. If whatever they're telling you goes against the Isaiah 61 mission put out in front of us, then it's wrong. It's wrong. And we'll be wrong. That's okay. But what's not okay is to be wrong with a confidence that it's right because I say it's right, which is what these religious leaders had, and we have to avoid greatly. Zonti, Jesus called my name, coming up right now.
You're listening to God'sLoveLive.com.
I can't believe I went so long. I don't know how to keep it super short, and I'm going to be honest, one of the reasons that that's the case is because this is too important to just try to make it that simple, to try to fit it into us. This doesn't fit into my plan. Doesn't fit into my 5-year plan to serve the Lord until it hurts. You told me 3-4 years ago that I was going to be doing this, I'd have thought you were crazy. I'd have been like, nah, man, God gave me a chance a couple of times to do something serious in ministry, and I walked away. I messed up. I'm not good enough. That's what I told you a couple years ago. I mean, I didn't even, like, God's Love Live's been, we're coming up on 3-year anniversary. This year we have our 3-year anniversary. I launched this in 2021. I was talking to my wife the other day about it. She's like, it's funny because you were running it for over a year before you considered it a ministry. And Pastor Ryan's the one that kind of made me go, oh, wait, yeah, it really is, isn't it? I never considered what I'm doing here right now a ministry until Pastor Ryan was like, nah, this is, and don't get me wrong, it felt good to get a compliment from someone who I respected, but then afterwards I kind of sat back and I went, that was cool that he told me that. It's nice that I'm doing something that's worth calling a ministry. But as much as I love and respect Ryan, I don't care what he thinks. That's one of the things. I want people to think well of me, and I want people to be like, yeah, man, Chuck's a respectable guy, and we work with him, and he does this and he does that and whatever. That's great. None of my motivation for all of it, none of my motivation comes from a place of wanting those accolades. And if it gets to where it seems that way, please, somebody slap me in the back of the head and set me back on my path. And this is something I struggle with on a daily basis. I have to make sure that my ego doesn't overrun my will to serve and the service that I'm trying to provide for in the name of the Lord. Because my ego can, listen, I've got a healthy ego. I've got probably an unhealthily large ego, or I can have. Probably one of my biggest weaknesses, because I am a very outgoing person. I'm very outspoken. I say what I think, and I have for a very long time. I have managed to find a way throughout the years and years and years, because God blessed me. I just, I can easily, and I've told people, my 17-year-old daughter has the right to has been granted the right, not only the right, is encouraged to look at her father and go, stop, you're letting your ego take control, step away for 5 minutes, come back, and then let's talk about this situation. And if she looks at me and says that, I'll do it. Because if my 17-year-old daughter starts to think dad's ego's taken over, I want to know and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There have been times where she thought it was and she was wrong, and there have been times where she thought it was and she was right. Again, because we're all going to be sometimes right and sometimes wrong. And I may take this and I may read this and I may say, hey, listen, God, Jesus, the Messiah is not a pacifist. He's a peace lover. He wants peace and completeness and wholeness in our lives, in our enemies' lives. He wants all of that. But when it comes time, and when it's necessary, he's gonna fight. And he has fought for us. And we need to really seriously sit back and recognize this and understand what that means. And then we have to decide what it means for us. Because if it's just this cute little story that I'm getting every year on Easter, and there's nothing to it, and there's nothing more to do, and there's nothing, if all we're going to do is, spend a great deal of time figuring out a way to use this Jesus thing to validate my own thing, my self-care or my, whatever, I don't know, whatever, my woke feelings, wanting to be part of the alphabet crew or whatever. Listen, compassion, love, and extend to them the knowledge of God's forgiveness for everyone. But that doesn't mean what is wrong is now right. It means that we call out the wrong in a loving way. If we see someone who's living in a way that they're going to be lost, I don't know how, and I do it in my own life. I do it in my own life, but I don't know how I sit and watch these people who I care about blindly walking towards condemnation, damnation, and the end of everything good in their eternity, and not completely just lose my mind trying to get these people to understand it. No, that's the wrong way. If I was out in the wilderness with my grandson, Oliver, or Merlin, or any of them really, Leo or Izzy, whatever, if I'm out playing with my grandkids and I see them and they're running towards a cliff, I will tear my own arms off to get to them in time to stop them from running off that cliff. I will run, jump, knock them back to safety while I tumble down that cliff and die without thinking twice. Why am I not doing that when it comes to the spiritual well-being of all the people around me who I care about? Why am I not grabbing hold of people? Well, I know why. I'm not, because I'm afraid that I can be such a sledgehammer that I do more damage than good sometimes. So I've begun trying to develop the ability to be more Christ-like, because being the sledgehammer all the time, not really super following my Savior, Not really. If I justly bring to you things that are wrong, that you're doing wrong, whatever, to you, and I say, okay, brother, here's the stuff you're doing wrong, and here's why, and I've done this. I had a kid that I was working with a while back, who I tried to guide as much as I could, and I was trying to uplift him, but I realized too late to really do much about it, that what I was actually doing was I was just being extremely critical of him most of the time. And the things I was saying were true. The things I was saying were true, but it was said in a way that it could drive a wedge, space, pull him away from Christ. drive him down rather than lift him up. And if that's what we're doing, then we have to stand back and go, okay, wait. I've got to do this in a different way. Now, I've had other people who, I had one other guy who literally looked at me and was like, man, I wish you could help me with my life problems and talk to me about all this stuff that I'm going through and anxiety, and I feel this way and I feel that way, and I wish you could talk to me about all that stuff and not bring God into it. And I was like, I can barely have a 20-minute conversation. I don't end up talking about God in some way. It's what happens. Ask my wife. Because I don't have the answers that you're looking for. If you and I are talking, and you're like, oh, I'm going through this, and oh, it's just terrible, and life, and da-da, and da-da, and da-da, and you're just kind of going through all this, and you're like, what do? I don't have any answers. Not only do I not have all the answers, I don't have any of the answers on my own. If I try to make the decision on my own on how to approach this or whatever, I am going to just botch it completely. Every single time. If I'm relying on my own wisdom. If I learn, pray for, and discern God's wisdom, then that's a whole different thing. And that's what I want. I want to be able to discern God's wisdom. We're going to do our 3 o'clock hour. Try to wrap this video up by an hour and a half, because I won't do a second part since we did. I won't do a second part of the video, but we will wrap this up and do our last part of the audio program here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the wisdom of man versus the wisdom of God. Toby Mac, everything here on GodsLoveLive.com. I'm such an idiot. If you guys could see, if you're not watching on the video, go watch the video, and when you see what just happened, you'll understand why I'm such an idiot. Okay, so between the hours of 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, on the video, we have been discussing a whole bunch of stuff, but we've come to a place of discussing the wisdom of the Lord. I was just talking about how sometimes we'll be, trying to help somebody, working with somebody, and we realize that what we're doing is of our own ego, of our own wisdom, and we end up, and might have the best of intentions. I did this with someone. I had the best of intentions, but I caused harm and possibly even a little bit more of a chasm between him and the Lord and the Lord's will in his life, because I was a little too much of what my wife calls a sledgehammer, or some people tend to call an ape. I kind of, sometimes I'm like a bull in the china shop. I get overwhelmed with this feeling, because it's so critical. There is nothing more important on this earth than understanding that if you don't have it, you need salvation, and you need redemption, and you need the grace that Christ is offering you. There's nothing more important. Not what we're having for dinner tonight, not what we're having for breakfast tomorrow, not my car payment, not the payment for the server that allows me to put this audio program on. Nothing is more important than knowing that God loves me and that I need to submit. So I get, as you just heard, Very, very passionate about it. Now, here's the thing. James tells us in chapter 3, verse 13 through 18. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy or selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. So if you tell me that you're a pacifist because Jesus is a pacifist, and I think you're in error, if you're going to err on the side of, if you're going to err, if you're going to be wrong on the side of peace loving and err on the side of a peace loving idea. Of a, I just said I don't believe Jesus is a pacifist. We read a section about his anger at them having a marketplace in the temple. What's the difference between him and me? Why should I be a pacifist if Jesus wasn't? Well, he is God. And in the flesh, Jesus was perfect. He had a just anger, a righteous anger for what they were doing in the Father's house. So when we consider that, we have to look at it and understand it. Yeah, I probably should be a little more of a pacifist. I'm sending my wife a note because she tried to call me, even though I told her not to call me because I would be in the middle of a video. She thought, well, I'll try to call anyway. So I'm like, I hope you don't need anything important, but okay. So again, being a little bit of a pacifist for us as humans makes sense. Jesus had the righteousness. He had this wisdom perfectly, purely, and completely. I do not. It doesn't mean I'm always going to be a pacifist. It doesn't mean I'm always going to be I am always going to be submissive and try to have mercy. Submissive to my Lord and try to have mercy even for the enemy. But I think there's also a time to fight. If there wasn't, we wouldn't see what we see in Ephesians 6. So that's the complicated part. The easy part is saying, yes, Lord, I'd like to have your righteousness, your forgiveness, reconciliation with God the Father. That's simple. The hard part's living it out. Right? Honor and Glory, Citizens Ways, Chris Tomlin, all coming up, but Russ Taff coming up first.
Are you looking for a family?
Honor and Glory, you are God. Here on GodsLoveLive.com. I am going to go ahead and just let you enjoy the music. I do want to remind you, if your nonprofit group or organization has an event you'd like to promote here on GodsLoveLive.com, stop in. Nope, that's wrong. Email. I mean, if you really want to stop in, you can. Email chuckles@GodsLoveLive.com. Tell us all about it. Ren Collective, Skillets, Chris Tomlin and more. First, it's Andra and Mara. Sweet Dreams coming right up.
Bringing you God's Love Live.
Citizens Way here on God'sLoveLive.com with Chuckles in the afternoon. What a beautiful afternoon it is. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're enjoying the music, staying safe, happy, and healthy. Stick around. I think Wade will be up next. You never know what kind of fancy schmancy stuff he's going to try to pull. So stick around, check it out, say hello, shoot him a note, tell him he doesn't need it, and tell him hello. You know, just let him know that you're paying attention, that there's somebody out there who cares what he has to say, who cares what we have to say, who cares what we're trying to share. Wade, much like me, is just trying to share whatever it is that God's showing him right now. So stick around. Wade's up, I think, from 4 to 8. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. tomorrow with music and a little tiny bit of talk. And then again, of course, tomorrow at noon, we'll have this wonderful program. Stick around. Check out Wade's program. Rebel Sun, Waymaker, Skillet, and Ren Collective coming right up. You're listening to God's Love Live. Okay. Oh, Wade must have already done his show because it went to complete, which means all the other audio breaks are done. Cool. Oh, my goodness. How's it going, folks? What'd you think? We're going to wrap it up and get on out of here. Probably try to make another video this afternoon of the, what did I say? Oh, readings. I'm going to read chapter 21 of Matthew today, 22 of Matthew tomorrow, 23 of Matthew, right on down the line. Stick around. Check it out. Share it with your friends. If you would consider donating, we would seriously appreciate it. All you got to do is go to God'sLoveLive.com. Go to God'sLoveLive.com and click donate. You can share it that way. Or you can go to Cash App. Right there's the tag right above me. Here. I guess I need to do it like that. Go check it out. Meanwhile, have a great night, and I will be back. Well, like I said, be back a little later today with some more reading, at least, if not some other stuff. Thank you for being here. May the Lord keep you and bless you. Make His face to shine upon you until we are together again. Later. Where's the stop button?